What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Forgot. It's just gentlemen. We're only dealing with gentlemen here. Gentlemen, welcome back to another UDL highlights video. This time for week 7. If you watched last week, you'd know that things are getting hot. I mean, they've been hot for a while, but they're really spicing up in these last handful of weeks. Let me just check to make sure this is recording. Cool. Looks good. So, anyway, things are getting really spicy, and I'm just excited as a competitive Pokemon fan just to kind of watch how all this plays out. Not just to watch it, but even also to be a part of it and play with it. Play with it, that sounded weird. But, yeah, I'm really enjoying this season so far because we've been getting so many good games, an amazingly stiff playoff race, and just more exciting matchups to come with even bigger implications going forward, because the playoffs are right around the corner. After week 7, we only have 2 more weeks, so you'll have some people here and there maybe either clinching a playoff spot or getting really close to that, or maybe even coming close to clinching a bye. So week 7 definitely has some pretty big implications, but I think weeks 8 and 9 are really going to decide a lot of what happens for the playoffs, because hey, just squeaking into the playoffs is pretty much what it's all about. It's important, obviously, to do well in the regular season because you put yourself in a better position to make the playoffs, even, should things go wrong kind of at the end of the season, or let's say there's some kind of time constraint, or you're just a little burnt out and you don't feel like grinding so hard in the later weeks. But also, when it comes to getting a first round bye, I'm a big believer in including that in leagues, because I think that people who do well in the regular season should get rewarded. So a first round bye in a league with tough competition is pretty valuable, because even if one player is dominant and doing really well and maybe has a higher skill level than someone maybe they are facing in playoffs, you just never know. It's Pokemon. So getting a whole free round is really, really nice in my opinion. So with all that out of the way, I'm going to do my best to do this one a little more quickly. I say that every time probably, but I'm a little bit short on time tonight. I wanted to do this a little earlier, but I really wanted to wait for one of the last games to be played, just in case it happened to be a really good one, because I wasn't too sold on the 3 that we have so far this week. A couple of them that I was considering were pretty hacksy, so unfortunately, I wouldn't say that overall these are like the best games that we've had, or like the best week of games. And unfortunately, there's actually still a few that haven't been played. There was one that was a forfeit, which was unfortunate. There's one that's receiving an extension, and one that still hasn't been played yet, and looks like it's probably not going to be played. So if you're watching this video, get your stuff together, boys. Just 2 more weeks, get all your games done. It shouldn't be that difficult. Just schedule early in the week and get it done. So with that being said, like I previously mentioned, I'll do my best to wrap this up kind of quickly, but I'm going to do what I did last week, go through the games, and then also take a quick look at the playoff picture to see what's going on, what maybe changed from last time, and where we're going from there. So this one is a cool matchup. Again, it's got Mr. Illusion going up against the Brighton Bewares, which is Evan, and they both have pretty good drafts in my opinion, but they're both, I think Evan is 2-4. Yes, Evan's 2-4 going to this game, and Illusion is 1-5. So Illusion's playoff hopes aren't looking that great, but he brought a really cool team. So I was like, you know what? I feel like this one probably deserves to get onto the weekly highlights. So we'll get right into the battle, as Illusion leads with his Deoxys defense. Really good mon in my opinion. A lot of people think that's kind of trash, or just like, I've heard the comparison to like Psychic Registeel, and I don't think that's fair at all. I think it's much better, but anyway, leads with Deoxys as Evan leads with the Crocodile. They both exchange some hazards right there, as Illusion goes hard into Conk on the knockoff, but does lose the Flame Orb, which kind of sucks, because as you can see with the Flame Orb, then things like Tangrowth really can't wall Conkeldurr very safely, so he was able to go hard into the Tangrowth as Illusion goes for the knockoff, and does knock off the Rocky Helmet, as just goes for a Drain Punch here. None of his moves doing too much, but gains a little HP back, and also takes a Sleep Powder, as here Evan goes for the Leech Seed on the incoming mill tank, and we actually, it's revealed to be Sap Sipper. So first thing I'm thinking in my head is like, is this banded mill tank? But no, it's actually even cooler. So Illusion goes for the substitute. Now this is looking pretty cool, because I'm like, wow. Evan goes into his low punny, like, if he's gonna stay in here to break the sub, then Miltank probably claims a kill on this low punny here. Just looking at the rest of Illusion's team, like, obviously he has a Deoxys defense, but outside of that, this low punny is looking pretty strong against him. So this would be nice if Illusion's able to claim a kill here, but you're gonna see something kind of funny. Evan goes for the drain punch, and that 12% recovery actually makes a big difference, because he lives on 10% after taking that +1 double edge. That's crazy. Miltank is so weak, the +1 double edge. I wonder if it was Jolly or Adamant. I'm guessing that it was Jolly, based on the item that he reveals later, and also just like in general kind of relative is the Crocodile has base 92 speed, which might be creeping something like Dio, or also there's Jirachi here with the same speed tier. So knowing Illusion, I feel like he'd probably have gone Jolly here, which might have been the reason it didn't take out the low punny. But still, the drain punch really made a big difference, because it gave him that 12% recovery. Had he not had that, double edge for sure would have knocked him out right there, just be given the roll. So now he's going to switch out, as his Deoxys is probably going to be Rocky Helmet, but Evan makes a really good play and goes right for the Toxic, expecting the Deoxys to come in. And now here he's actually just going to stay in, because he is dead to a spike. So if he has no potential for defog on the rest of his team, so he goes right for the return and goes down, as Illusion does make a good play there, getting up a spike, probably knowing that that would happen. So here the Thunderous comes in, and with Life Orb is able to knock out the Deoxys pretty easily, as here Illusion brings in his Hydra and just clicks Drake on the incoming Clefairy, and now Clefairy goes for Thunder Wave on Illusion's Mega Diancie, which sucks because this Mega Diancie looks really solid against the rest of Evan's team. Like, the Tangrowth has revealed to be Rocky Helmet, which means that it can't take Moonblast, like maybe the Clefairy is tailored to beat the Diancie, but he did switch it out against it, so obviously the Jirachi is a solid check. So other than Jirachi, this Diancie was looking pretty good, and even if the Jirachi, isn't Scarf, for example, then Diancie hits it quite hard, as gets his rocks up, as here the Jirachi goes for Calm Mind, and Illusion reveals to be his Buddy Eye's specialty, Endeavor, and gets a nice little chunk off on the Jirachi, just because his Diancie's HP is so much lower than Jirachi's naturally. So it gets 30% off, but it's just going to drop to the Flash Cannon on the next turn, as here he's going to bring in his Hydreigon, which I'm assuming might have been Choice Scarf, but that Fire Blast only does 39% and goes down to the Moonblast. So here he U-turn crits the Jirachi. I wonder if that mattered, I'm not sure, but here he brings in the Miltank, and just perfectly, those perfect EVs get him down to 25, allowing him to activate the Salic Berry. But unfortunately for him, this Crocodile does have the Intimidate, so Illusion's able to Milk Drink here, though, which is pretty cool. He's able to just recover up on this Crocodile, but the Crocodile does have leftovers, so he is kind of like putting himself on a bit of a timer, and also reveals to be the Dragon Tail, as like the Crook would just keep healing up, and then Double Edge is gonna do Recoil, which will kind of like put him in range of a 2 KO from Earthquake. So really cool set though. Sub Salic, Milk Drink, Double Edge. I wonder what his last move was, probably like Earthquake. So here comes the Crobat in on the Crocodile, as Illusion just goes hard for the U-turn, goes right into the Conkeldurr, as Evan makes the good play here, going right for Earthquake, predicting the Conk to come in, as Illusion tried to go for Mach Punch but was not able to wake up, as that's why he went first. And here's just going to bring in the Miltank and click Double Edge, as it appears to be a potential 2-hit KO on this Crook, as it is, but he does end up losing his Miltank in the process, as now he brings in his Crobat, and unless he's able to knock out the Thunderous with a Cross Poison here, then he doesn't have a chance. I wonder, imagine if that was like a banded Crobat right in this scenario. I'm guessing he was like Scarf or something to revenge low punny, or I don't know. I mean, Crobat could have run a lot of sets, but the fact that he had Cross Poison made me think that he might be choiced, as it's generally not a really good move to have on it if it's some kind of more like versatile or utility set. But that Cross Poison does not too much to this Thunderous. Had he been choice banded, maybe he could have, I don't know if it would have knocked out Clefairy. The thing is, Tangrowth, I would imagine, could take a hit because he's probably physically defensive, but the thing is, he'd come in on both Stealth Rocks and 2 rounds of Spikes, meaning that he might have been in range, so I don't know. But yeah, that was not the case for poor Illusion. So this is actually interesting, though, because Evan getting this win might put him back in the playoff picture. His differential is pretty low, but he is now at 3-4. So if he goes 5-4, even with a bad differential, I think he might have a chance to make playoffs. So I think that might have just put him back in the race. He's someone who made playoffs last season, and he's been on a bit of a steady win streak. Unfortunately, earlier in the season, he did have a forfeit loss, and that kind of sucks for him because had he had a chance to play that one out and maybe gotten a win, then he could be in a really good spot right now instead of a not so great one, but just kind of having a chance. But yeah, I don't really know based on the differential if like he mathematically has a chance, but I'm pretty sure he does because it's not like his differential is so atrocious that if he wins his next 2 games, he'd have no way of like squeaking in. And overall record is the most important thing. So if not too many people end up with 5 wins, then he's got a shot. So that was one of the reasons I wanted to showcase this one, because it actually does have pretty big implications for Evan, but also Illusion just brought a lot of fire. Both of these guys brought really good teams, but Illusion definitely had that hot Miltank set that I felt deserved to get a shout. So next up, we have myself finally making a return to the highlight games. I was actually on here 2 weeks ago, so I don't know why I said finally, but yeah, I think this is my second time being on here. I've tried not to put too many of my games on here, even though they normally happen to be pretty close differential wise, but this is one that someone even mentioned they wanted to see it on the highlights game, and it was one that I think both myself and Hiker Toad, my opponent, were looking forward to for a long time, because we've been playing in the format for a long time, but actually have never played each other, which is kind of crazy. We haven't really been in the same leagues too often, but when it comes to a lot of these tournaments, they're big tournaments. So kind of like with II, who I played a couple weeks ago, we've just happened to like miss each other over and over again. So this is his first season in UDL, and he's been doing really well so far. He's 4-2 going into this match, and I am 5-1. So this has pretty big implications as well, because in my conference especially, as you might have seen last week, there are so many people at 4-2, which means for them, anything could happen basically. Like they will probably have to get 2 more wins to clinch a playoff spot, but a decent amount of them are even playing each other or playing other people who are in contention for playoffs. So a lot of these games in the coming weeks, including week 7, have a good amount of implications, because like I said, you're probably going to need in the Y conference 6 wins to clinch playoffs, and 5 wins is probably going to be a toss-up based on differential. So if you have 4 wins going into week 7, it's not even like, oh, just 1 more win guarantees it. And even so, you're going to want to you need to even get that first win in the first place, which can be tough with only 3 weeks left and a lot of solid opponents. So this week I got paired up against Hiker Toad. So like I said, I was definitely really excited for this one. I have a pretty good matchup, I think, against him in Oras, and I was kind of struggling in prep, like in the sense that I was struggling to pick what I thought was like good against him, or like the most good against him, because I felt a lot of my sets or potential sets all had a lot of merit against him, but it was just kind of hard to piece it together, because his offense is also really strong against me. So it was tough for me to decide what I felt could put me in a good position to break his team down, as well as stop the threatening offense that he could potentially bring. So yeah, this was definitely an interesting week of prep, but fun nonetheless. Like I said, what was I gonna get into? Yeah, I guess just a team preview. I brought my Stealth Rock Rhydon, my Scizor, my Weavile, which you're going to see the set eventually. This is a Mega Gardevoir here. I made a couple of transactions getting both Thunderous T and Serperior. I just had to let go of the Talonflame, because I think that Talonflame can be good in Oras, but I think we have it priced a lot too high, and also I don't really think it fits the nature of my draft overall. It's just kind of hard to squeeze on a lot of those builds, because I don't really have the best checks to, like, defensive checks to things that would threaten out Talonflame. So because of that, I don't think it was really the best fit on my team anymore. But Hiker, like I mentioned, I think the last time I had him I think I've had him for all 3 weeks of Oras on here, because He's had some good Oras games, but also his team almost looks like an OU team when you look at the roster. He's got Mew, which he didn't bring, which I was kind of surprised to see. He's also got Gengar. So things like Gengar, Mega Aerodactyl, Landorus T, Hydreigon, Rotom Wash. Obviously, Snorlax wasn't as good in Gen 6 as Gen 7, but still quite good. And then he's got a couple of solid lower tier picks like the Steelix, which happens to check a lot of my mons naturally, and then Clefairy. So no more dilly-dallying. We'll get right into the game between myself and Hygertoad. So I'm going to lead with my Scuyo, my Gardevoir, and this was actually a pretty good lead for me because I am packing Trace, which intimidates the Landorus, so that means I can live pretty much any hit this Landorus would want to go for, even if it has something super effective or like Explosion. I mean, like, I don't know if I could live like a Choice Banded Explosion or something, but let's say he was like Adamant Stealth Rock Explosion, I could live something like that. So I could just click Hyper Voice here, because if he stays in, he's going to take a good chunk of damage, and if he switches out, I can get some solid information on his team, and pretty much everything is taking a good chunk. Like, unless he's a really bulky, like, Assault Vest Snorlax, then everything is taking a pretty solid chunk. And even if he does reveal to be Assault Vest Snorlax, that is pretty good to know, because setup Snorlax is always scary. So I'm just going to click Hyper Voice here, as he actually goes into the Steelix. And this Hyper Voice damage reveals that he's not fully Spadef, but I'm predicting him to be Choppleberry, because otherwise Life Focus Blast Gardevoir could just knock this thing out from here. But I'm going to go into my Rhydon, and this thing is so bulky. Like, I don't know how heavy, or how much base power that Heavy Slam would have against a Rhydon, because I'm assuming Rhydon's pretty heavy. But Steelix is so ridiculously heavy that I wouldn't be surprised that if it did have the full base power, or close to it at least, and only did 18%. Like, Rhydon with a Violite is just insane. So getting this in on the Steelix is nice, because rocks really do a lot to both of our teams, but hey, like, I'm going to take the opportunity if I can get it, so I do get up my rocks, as he does as well. And now I'm expecting him to go into his Rotom Wash here, as the kind of obvious play for me to go for is Earthquake, and weakening the Steelix down a little bit would be nice, but I already do have it weakened a little bit, which can put it in range of certain things on my team. And I also feel like the Rotom play here is decently likely, even maybe something like Hydreigon, who knows. So I'm going to go for the Roar instead of Earthquake, because even if he does Earthquake me here, it's not going to do too much. So he does stay in and go for the Earthquake, and it only does 26, as I do Roar him into his Aerodactyl. So now I don't have any switches to this Aerodactyl, and it does kind of suck that I did take that extra damage, because, for example, like an Aqua Tail from Mega Aerodactyl can actually knock me out from this range. Had I been at the same range, like 82 or whatever it was beforehand, I would have been able to live one, but now he is in range to potentially knock me out, but I don't have a switch in, like I said. So here I'm actually just going to go for the Avalanche in a hope that he does just go for some kind of attack and isn't packing the Aqua Tail or like over predicts or something. So here he Mega Evolves, and he actually goes for the Protect, which I wasn't expecting. So I reveal the Avalanche, and now because he revealed the Protect here, I kind of figured that he doesn't have a move to knock me out. Maybe wanted to see what I was packing in store, because he just saw that I went for Roar, so that was kind of risky in case I wanted to go for Roar again. But the fact that he went for it kind of convinced me that he didn't have the Aqua Tail here, because he just really didn't lose much by going for it, because even something like Superior has to come in and take Stealth Rocks and then take a chunk from an Aqua Tail. And if I reveal to be something like Leftovers or whatever, then he could probably knock me out the next turn with one of his attacks. So now I'm just going to click Roar, expecting him to probably want to go out to his Rotom Wash, which he does, and I get him on that play, as Rotom taking Chip is really nice for me, as here he brings in his Landorus T, and because he got the Intimidate, I'm like, you know what, he may just want to stay in and attack me, so I'll go for the Avalanche, because it should do a decent chunk even with the Intimidate, and if he's Yachi, then popping that actually would be pretty nice for things like both Weavile and Thunderous T. So I'm going to go for the Avalanche, but he does just go for U-turn and go back into his Rotom. So good play on his part, as his Avalanche only does 4%. But the Rotom is down to 72 now, and I'm kind of forced to sack my Rhydon, because I don't really have particularly safe switch-ins to this Rotom Wash. I really don't want to risk sending anything in like Superior or Gardevoir, things that can capitalize on this Rotom, because you don't know if it's going to either make like a hard read and go for Volt Switch, or even pack something like Thunder Wave, which is very crippling in Oras. So here I go into my Mega Gardevoir, and I'm just going to click Hyper Voice, as he actually goes hard into Snorlax, and this does a lot. And based on what I calc, if that Hyper Voice was a max roll, then Focus Blast is basically a guaranteed KO here. So I'm like, you know what, I guess I'm just going to like risk it, because maybe some kind of offensive Snorlax that if I go for Hyper Voice, he'd be able to just OHKO me here with like a Banded Return or Double Edge or something, because otherwise I could probably take a hit. But because he took so much from that, it seems like he just really doesn't even have much even HP investment, which was kind of surprising. So here I go right for the Focus Blast, and thankfully I do hit and knock him out. So here he brings in his Steelix, and like I said before, I'm pretty sure this thing is going to be Chople Berry. So I'm not even going to risk the Focus Blast, because a Chople Focus Blast would not knock him out. So I'm going to go for the Hyper Voice, because that could put him in range of other moves on my team, like Thunderous Focus Blast. I think Scizor's Superpower might be able to knock him out, I'm not sure. Superior Leaf Storm. So here I go for the Hyper Voice, and I actually get a crit. So without the crit, I would have probably done around like mid-30s. So he would have been in range of those aforementioned moves, but still, that crit does actually end up mattering a little bit. As you're going to see, he goes for the Heavy Slam, and this crit might have mattered as well, but I didn't ask him for a spread, so I don't know for sure. As here I bring in my Thunder Is, which is the way my boy Tony Zazo pronounces it. So that's where I came up with that random nickname. So I'm able to go for HP Ice here. This is why this matters, because otherwise I probably would have been forced to go for Focus Blast should I had gone Thunderous after this. So I'm going to go for the Hidden Power Ice, knock out the Steelix, and now he's going to bring in his Aerodactyl, and I am Charty Berry with enough defense to live, and Adamant Stone Edge guaranteed here. So I'm really hoping, I was hoping that he'd bring in the Aerodactyl, because for example something like Yachi Landorus might be able to take me on, or at least pop my Charty Berry, and I feel like at this point Aerodactyl is a little bit bigger of a threat, so knocking this thing out would be really nice for me. So I'm just going to click Thunderbolt here, hope he doesn't crit me with the Stone Edge, and thankfully he does not. Does 66%, and I am able to knock him out with the T-Bolt, as now he's able to go into his Landorus Therian, as I'm expecting it to be Yachi at this point, which it is, and it does quite a little amount, but it does pop the Yachi, which is really good for Weavile, as now he brings in his Rotom Wash, and I can just go right into Superior, as here I'm going to click Leaf Storm, as he goes hard into his Hydreigon, and actually reveals to be leftovers as I miss my Leaf Storm. Doesn't matter too much, but interesting to see that he's leftovers here, because I was pretty afraid of some kind of offensive Hydreigon, because my team doesn't really have great natural checks, but the lefties is actually looking a little more threatening than that right now, as here he goes right for a Dark Pulse, as I bring in my Weavile, and as you're going to see, it takes only 14% from the Hydreigon. This is indeed an Assault Vest Weavile, as it did give me some potential checks to like an offensive Hydreigon, as well as potentially Gengar. Obviously Focus Blast would blow me into next week, but any other move kind of bounces off this Weavile set. So here I am going to just go right for the knockoff, because I am expecting him to switch out here and probably into his either Landorus or Rotom. If he wanted to go Rotom, I had a feeling he might be no item, because that could take on Weavile pretty decently, and weakening the Rotom for my Scizor could be pretty nice. So he does make the better play in my opinion and go into his Landorus, as if he did stay in with his Hydra there, and I knocked off the lefties, that would be actually pretty cool for me too, because that kind of passive recovery would help him against Superior, whereas if he didn't have that anymore, that would put him in a bit of a shaky spot. So here I go for the knockoff, as he does bring in his Landorus, and now I'm able to just go for another knockoff here, because I know he can't outspeed me, and he's going to bring in his Rotom, as here I'm actually going to knock this off as well, because one more knockoff, or like this last knockoff, could put him in range of Scizor, as here he goes right for the Thunder Wave, which I was actually kind of afraid of, because like I said, T-Wave is just so crippling in Oras, and now I'm extremely slow, and also I'm at risk of getting fully powered. So I'm going to stay in here as I go for another knockoff. He misses the Hydro Pump. It would have bounced off me, so it's not like, and it wouldn't even have put me in range of another Stealth Rock, but still, like, that damage is damage, so it does matter, as here he is at 15%, and now I'm actually going to hard switch into my Superior, because I know he's kind of forced to go for the Hydro Pump here. And I wanted to keep the Weavile, because knowing my Superior set, I know that I can't take on this Hydra, as well as this Weavile can, even like a paralyzed low Weavile. I know that if I get it in on Rotom, the best way that Superior could potentially deal with this Hydreigon, or at least pressure it, is by getting off at least one Leaf Storm to get to the +2 as the Hydra comes in. So he does go hard into Hydra here, as I'm able to go for this Leaf Storm, get about 20% off, and get to +2. So now I'm going to click Leaf Storm again. Thankfully we do hit, and we do 41%. So now that means the next one's going to do around 60 something, as he does reveal Thunder Wave on this Hydreigon. So now he's definitely going to outspeed me, even though I am Choice Scarf, as I'm going to click one more Leaf Storm, which will put him in range of both Scizor and Weavile, if I, whichever one I choose to go into. If he does, like, end up knocking me out this turn or something. But if he does Roost, then yeah, like, he'll take like 60% and be at like 40 something, which means on the next turns he either has to try to knock me out, or he could try to roost all my Leaf Storms. But if I do hit one, then he's pretty much screwed. So, because if I'm at max special attack, then it will be doing around 80%, so he won't be able to really roost those off anymore. So here he goes for the Dark Pulse, and I do end up getting the Leaf Storm off through the para and avoiding a flinch, and I do crit. So the crit obviously matters, that in the sense it wouldn't have knocked him out, but he would have been in range of both priority from Scizor and Weavile, and his Rotom is so low that even something like a 4x resisted Bullet Punch from Scizor would have been able to knock out the Rotom Wash. So at this point, I pretty much had the game. Now here I do something I don't normally do, but I'm going to try to save a differential point just because my differential really isn't that great. So I go hard into my Weavile because I know that I could take a Hydro Pump after this these Stealth Rocks, as he actually goes for Foul Play, which probably does just as much as a Hydro Pump would have pretty much, I think. I don't know. But Hydro I know couldn't knock me out from there. So here, if I get this Ice Shard off, then I'll be able to save a differential point. If not, I can go into Scizor and, like I said, just click something like Bullet Punch, as this Ice Shard does go off, and I am able to knock him out and get the 3-0 victory. So this was obviously a closer game than the 3-0 outcome. It was really tight up until the end, pretty much, as that Hydreigon, being a bulky Thunder Wave set, definitely threw me for a loop and had a good matchup against what I brought. So really fun back and forth game. Only 27 turns, just both of us having a solid game plan for one another and gradually pressuring each other until it came down to a pretty tight finale. So that was a really enjoyable game. I was so glad to get to play Hiker. I was really excited to see him on my schedule this season. So my first game with him definitely didn't disappoint. I thought it was a really good one, and I'm looking forward to playing him more in the future. Who knows, maybe we'll get to play again in playoffs, but that was a really fun one, and I'm glad that we finally got the chance to play. So moving on to this final game of the week, it is Nick, who's been on so many of these, I think, against Kaz, who's also been on so many of these. So good for them, always having close games and making it onto the highlight reel. So this is an interesting game because Nick has been picking it up later in the season. He's 2-4 going into this, as I think he won like 2 out of his last 3, and he's going up against Kaz, who has also been on a little bit of a streak, and now he's 3-3 going into this. So I think that this game has pretty solid playoff implications, because if Nick is able to win, then he puts himself pretty solidly in the playoff picture, because he'd be at 3-4, and his differential is actually pretty decent. So that would mean that if he wins out, then he has a pretty solid shot at playoffs. Whereas same thing with Kaz, he's in a little bit of a better spot. His differential is even better than Nick's, and he's also at 3-3. So a couple wins out of Kaz, and I think he will be able to make playoffs. So pretty important game for both guys. So we will get right into their battle. It just says play here. Hopefully it plays without the music. Okay, it does. So Nick leads with his Blastoise, as Kaz leads with his Rotom, and he actually reveals the Protect on his Blastoise. His Kaz does just go for the Hydro Pump here, but then reveals not to be choice by going for Volt Switch on the next turn and making a good play, going into his Skarmory, maybe predicting the Toxic, knowing that that's probably Blastoise's best way to cripple Rotom. So now here, Nick just stays in, going for another Protect, as he's able to actually recover a good amount of chip against Kaz's team right now, as here Kaz is going to go for the Will-O-Wisp again, as Nick does catch him and go for the Toxic, as Burn does gradually wear this Blastoise down a pretty decent amount even through the leftovers, but not too much. As here that Scald does a decent little chunk. He does get the first turn burn, so that is lucky for him. But with another round of burn, he does get into range of Torrent, which means this next Scald is going to hit really hard, as it does over almost 60 actually, as now this Skarmory would probably be in range of another, or close to in range of another Scald. As here he's able to get this Skarmory down to about 12%, so the next Scald will be able to knock him out. So Nick tries to use this opportunity to bring in his Heliolisk, but Kaz does just roost there, so another Scald would have knocked out this Skarmory, but all in all, it doesn't work too poorly here, as Nick does go for the Hyper Voice here, though, which was kind of a misplay. I mean, I guess you could say it was a misplay. Like, it kind of was a bit of a 50-50, as Kaz could have chose to bring in Mamoswine. The only reason I think it was kind of a misplay is that, like, he's got a pretty crippled and burnt Skarmory, so I think that it was more likely that he was going to sack the Skarmory and not try to preserve it and risk something like Mamoswine, but it does work out for Kaz and not for Nick, so that's why I said it was kind of a misplay. So Skarmory does get a spike up before going down, as now the Gardevoir comes in, and saving the Blastoise as a sack does come into handy here, as it is able to take that Hyper Voice going down. As here he's able to Mega Evolve with his Scizor and just go right for a Bullet Punch, as that crits the Garchomp, doing quite a bit of damage. So I'm sure that matters because Garchomp is so naturally bulky, so just getting that crit is some pretty significant damage. As here Nick brings the Talonflame in right on the Garchomp, going for Stealth Rocks, which was a good play. Going for the Brave Bird. That damage on Rotom Wash, I'm not sure if it's Choice Band, but I think there's a good chance it might be. It just kind of depends on the Rotom spread. Like, if it is physically defensive, then I feel like Choice Band would probably do around that much. But I don't know, I feel like Adamant Choice Band might do a little bit more. I really don't know. I don't know the calc off the top of my head. But here he's just going to switch out his Talonflame, going into his Heliolisk, as Kaz actually reveals to be the Chest Arrest set, and is now back at full, as Nick's going to go for the Hyper Voice to wear this Rotom down. Thunderbolt the Gardevoir, as he doesn't have a switch into it, and just get knocked out by the Hyper Voice. So here comes the Landorus, as the Sludge Wave is able to knock out the Gardevoir. And now here comes the Mamoswine, which just goes right for the Ice Shard. Gets a crit, which matters a little bit in the sense that it limits the amount of times this Landorus can come in now on Stealth Rock, but he does hit the Earth Power and got off a big chunk on the Mamoswine, and then hard switches Scizor into the incoming Ice Shard and then Bullet Punch it. So pretty tight game at the moment, as here he's going to hard switch his Rhyperior in against this Victini, which does take a little bit chip damage. Kaz going for the Flame Charge, revealing that he's probably going to have a grass move, either something like Grass Knot or Energy Ball for this Rhyperior. He's got the Ryback nickname. I like that. Some WWE reference, or just wrestling in general. So here the Grass Knot does come off, and the Rindo Berry just barely saves him. I wonder if that was a roll or if he was guaranteed to live that. He lives on 2 and goes for the Earthquake, but Victini eats that up nicely. Like, Victini really is fat, and without Stealth Rocks on the field, it makes a big difference. So as you can see, like, it would have been knocked out had there been Stealth Rocks here. So here he's going to go for another Flame Charge to get to +2, guaranteeing that he outspeeds everything on the field, but Talonflame does have access to that priority Brave Bird. So it does knock out the Victini, and then do another good chunk to the Rotom, as Kaz is just able to go right for the Volt Switch there and knock him out. So here comes the Scizor on the Garchomp, as Kaz goes into Rotom, and this is a big play. As you're going to see, he does go for the Bullet Punch. I think if he had something else like U-Turn on his set, then like maybe he could have won this game. I'm not entirely sure. Or let's say like Bug Bite or Superpower, or just something that could have potentially knocked out this Rotom from this range, because the Rotom is pretty low. Had he gone for something like that, he's only revealed the Bullet Punch so far. Had he gone for something like that, then perhaps he could have had a chance here. You'll see why in a second, but I don't think so, as the Bullet Punch does very little, as here he's able to Volt Switch on the Scizor here. And then he brings in the Landorus, which we already saw to be Yachi Berry, so it's probably not going to be able to outspeed the Garchomp, as Kaz just go for the Aqua Tail and reveal to be Life Orb. The reason I thought that maybe he could have had a chance was because, let's say, he Bullet Punched the Garchomp from 46, and the Garchomp hit him with an attack and Life Orb damage went off, then like maybe it would have been in range of Bullet Punch, but I'm not sure because the crit earlier did like 50 something, so I feel like it might have been a roll. That might have actually been a roll, but I don't know if he had even a move that could have knocked out the Rotom from there. So, and let's say it was something like Superpower, then he wouldn't have been strong enough to put the Garchomp in range of its own Life Orb recoil. So really close game, definitely exciting down to the wire between two guys who are in playoff contention. So great job on both parts, some good prep and play on both ends, and Kaz has been looking really strong in these recent weeks. Most of his losses this season have been close ones, so it's not like he hasn't been looking too great. It's just that he, for a while, was struggling with his record a little, and now he's brought it back to 4-3, which in the X Conference in particular is looking pretty nice for playoffs. If he gets one more win, he's probably got a really good shot to make it. So one win out of the last 2 games is definitely doable for a player of his skill. So interested to see how that goes for him. And Nick probably doesn't really have much of a chance to make playoffs anymore, but I know that he's still going to go hard in his last 2 weeks trying to get some W's. So with all that being said, that wraps up the Week 7 highlight games. Unfortunately, like I said, not all the games have been played. There's been one forfeit. There's still one extension, so hopefully that gets played soon. And then the other one, I don't think, like I said, is going to be played. But with all of that, I will move on to the playoff picture discussion really quickly. As let me just move down the, let me move down the thing. Oh, that's difficult. Yeah, there we go. That was challenging. Okay, so here we are. You get a good look at the standings. We'll go over the X Conference first. As let me get that out of there. We have at the top again. We still have the Singapore Silvallis, but they are actually one of the teams that are receiving an extension this week. So there is a chance that their perfect record can be tarnished, but they've been so dominant this season that I'll believe it when I see it. I think that even against a tough opponent, they're going up against top tier, who, as you can see, is also the only other team here with 6 games on their record. I do think K-Crick does have the upper hand here, so we'll see what happens there if he goes 7-0 or not. But either way, he's pretty much locked for playoffs regardless. I'm pretty sure with one more win, he clinches a bye as well. So really good for him. He's just been dominant this season so far. Aki got the win this week via forfeit, which was kind of unfortunate. I know he's not the type who wants a forfeit win. He was ready. He built a cool team, but his opponent kind of dropped the ball. So is what it is. I know it's the end of the season, and this hasn't happened too much this season, which has been a pretty big improvement from last. But I hope that for these last couple seasons, no one misses any games because the playoff race is really tight. So to be giving out free wins is pretty egregious, if I do say so myself. So top tier, if he does get a win this week, then he's looking great. That would be really, really good for him because being 5-2 going into the last 2 weeks, he probably clinches a playoff spot. And if he doesn't at with 5 wins, then he just needs to win one more out of his last 2. Then next up, we have Ben, Sebi, and Kaz all tied in record, and then Ben and Sebi actually tied with differential as well, which is interesting. Ben, kind of unfortunately, got like a big win, I think like a 5-0 win against Carson this week in probably the haxiest game of the season. So nobody's fault, just part of the game we play, really unfortunately, but it is what it is. That's kind of what happened, and that's how the pieces fell. And that was obviously a big boost because not only does it give him a big win on his record, it gives him 5 more differential points, which put him at the top of the 4 wins group, just tied with Sebi basically. So Sebi also got another big win this week against Helmy, with Kaz just getting that nice win over Nick that I just showed. Ice took a pretty big hit this week because he had to forfeit against Aki, which led him to being 3-4 when he was just previously in the playoff hunt. And it's not like he's not anymore. He still has pretty good differential and 2 more chances to get some wins. But this whole area over here is pretty clogged, as well as a couple 3-3 people or 3-4 people below him. So now he's actually put himself in a pretty precarious position. But if he does win out, then he probably does have a solid chance at making playoffs. So looking next, we have Carson, who, like I just mentioned, really got the short end of the stick this week. I know we call him corrupt, but I think he deserves some condolences because that was just a horror show of a game. And he lost a lot of differential in the process. Like I said, Evan put himself back in the picture, but because he has that -9, it probably is going to be kind of tough for him. But I do think it is possible for him to make playoffs should he win out. I'm sure that some things would need to happen because, as you see, these like 6 people are filled out already. But meaning that like some of these people would probably need to drop some games, if not all their games. But still, I think it probably is mathematically possible. And then the rest here I don't think have a mathematical chance of making it. So I won't spend too much time on them. But the Y conference is probably where it gets even more interesting. Let me drag this down again. Yeah, there you go. You can probably see everything now. So I moved a little further in the top. I'm pretty sure that I clinched playoffs with 6 wins, but I honestly don't even know because looking at how many people are at 4 and 3, like look at this. There are literally, what is that? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 people at 4 and 3 with 2 people at 5 and 2. So I'm pretty sure I'm not clinched for playoffs mathematically, which is kind of insane because Aki is almost clinched for a bye in his conference, where that's the same record, 6 and 1, whereas I'm not even clinched for playoffs. I think with one more win, the chances of me getting a bye are really high, but and I definitely clinched playoffs with 7 wins, but still, like, there's no guarantee I'm going to win my last 2 games, and yeah, 6 and 1, and 2 more games left, and I'm not clinched. Kind of crazy. So the Y conference is just so tight. As right below me, you have both Rob Jr. and II. They were both at 4 and 2 last week, and the only 2 out of the 4 and 2 group to get a win. A lot of them actually lost. There was 5 of them, and 3 of them lost. So these guys won, putting themselves in a really good spot to make playoffs because 1 more win gives them a great shot. 2 more wins. Well, that's the thing. I might not be mathematically clinched based on like the numbers of people's records, but I might be depending on like what the schedules are, because if some of these people are playing each other, then it might give me with 6 wins a guaranteed chance, because that means that like some of these people have to lose, but I'm not exactly sure. I might not be, but I also might be. So either way, the fact that it's not definite, like right off the bat, is kind of crazy, but still, II and Rob have a really good chance, especially Rob with his great differential. He, though, this week had a really tight game with Obi. I almost showed it, but I didn't because I was just like, it was kind of hacksy. That's the reason I didn't show it. Obi had a Deoxys defense set that really put in a ton of work against Rob's team, and Rob crit it in a really important scenario. Had he not done that, then Obi potentially could have won, because he did bring it down to being pretty close, because he did have the breakers left on his team to whittle Rob's team down, and then the Deoxys 1v1 most of Rob's team. So I wonder how that one would have played out. I'm not exactly sure what Rob's full team was, so maybe he still could have won it, but I think it would have been a lot closer, as Obi still brought it down to a 2-0 or 0-2 loss. But unfortunately, speaking of Obi, that probably is going to knock him out of the playoff race, as just so many people already have 4 wins, and the max he can get is 4 wins at this point. So he really has had so many great games this season with top players. Like his first game of the season was with II, and he probably should have won that one. Like almost definitely should have won that one. He just made a misplay at the end. He had a really close game with Hiker last week, and now this week possibly could have beaten Rob had he not gotten hacked. So shout outs to Obi. He's had a really strong season for his first time playing draft format seriously. So going down the rest of the list here, the 4 and 3, the 4 and 3 group still has 5 people, because 2 people got themselves into it all of a sudden, as Blitz was previously, like earlier in the season, at like 2 and 3, I thought. Yeah, I think he was at 2 and 3. He wasn't looking that great compared to last season, where he was like a playoff contender ever since the beginning. But he won his last 2 games pretty handily and has brought himself back heavily into the playoff picture. As you can see, all these people are so close, even with differential. They're within 2 points of each other. It's crazy. And then also, Shuckle King is probably going to end up getting a forfeit win, which, you know, sucks that it has to be a forfeit. But he looks like he's probably going to get a forfeit win against Zamcro, which will put him also at 4-3, meaning that there would be 6 people at 4-3. And if Rob lost that game, oh my God, 7 people at 4-3 in the same conference would be nuts. That would have been really, really wild and exciting. But anyway, this group is really, really tight. Blue got a huge win over Silver this week with a really good Combine Latias set that was just able to beat most of Silver's team, and that really carried him to the victory, as now Blue is 4-3 +5. He's always had solid differential, and someone who looked like he probably didn't have the best chance of playoffs all of a sudden has a really good chance. Same thing with Silver. He's had pretty solid differential, so even though he took like an 0-4 loss, he still is at +5, which good for him. Let me shout out Silver as well. He started out as 0-2, and I know he was feeling the pressure a little bit, and he came all the way back to 4-2, 4 straight wins, and now he sees himself in a little bit of a tougher position after that loss, but he still has a solid shot at making playoffs. Next up, we got Hiker Toad, who still has a really good chance at playoffs after this loss, but hey, nothing is really guaranteed in this Y conference, as you could see. I think one more win will put him in a really good spot to make it, but he probably is going to want to get both wins to guarantee it. So should be interesting for Mr. Hiker Toad. Obviously, he's someone that has the skills to make playoffs, but because it's Pokemon, you just never know what's going to happen. Next up, we have TJ and the Slow Brohomians. He's actually my opponent for this upcoming week, so this is actually a really important game for him. And it's pretty important for me as well, because like I said, I'm not 100% sure if I'm clinched for playoffs, but even so, it also could have bye implications. If I win that one, then I think I have a really good chance at getting a first round bye. So it's an important game for both of us, but especially for him. As next up, we have Blitz, who, like I said, has been on a streak, and if he wins his next 2 games, then he's probably going to make playoffs. If he wins one, he's got a solid shot too. Same thing with Shuckle King. If he gets the forfeit win tonight, he'll be at 4-3 with a 4 differential. So really, really interesting going into it. The playoff race is so ridiculously tight in this conference. I can't believe it. And like I said, it would have been so cool if, I'm not trying to say like it would be cool if Rob lost. Like, I'm not trying to like say that in an insulting way. It just would have been cool from an excitement standpoint, because he would have been at 4-3, meaning that we had like 7 people at 4-3 if Shuckle King gets the forfeit win, and then Obi would be at 3-4, meaning that if he wins out, he could potentially make playoffs too. So that would have been ridiculous, just like outright ridiculous. But that's not how it played out, but it's still pretty ridiculous. So I'm really excited to see how it goes from here. So I'll stop rambling. It did go on a little bit longer than I thought, but not a full hour. So I improved by almost 15 minutes. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Definitely let me know what you thought in the comments below. Really looking forward to seeing how the rest of the season plays out. I hope you all are as well. And with that one, hope you all have yourselves a fantastic day and week. And I will see you all in the next one later.